It's now my honor to introduce our keynote speaker. Each year, the seniors are asked to list who they would like to have address them at their graduation. It is not surprising that they have requested one of their most respected mentors. Sadhanand Maillard exemplifies the ideals of Madonna School as he integrates into his own life the intellectual, creative, and ethical aspects of his humanity. In each of his endeavors, one can see his mind, art, and heart working together, most often for the good of others. He serves as president of the nonprofit corporation, Alicia, that owns Mount Madonna Center, Pacific Cultural Center, and Gateway's Book and Gift. He is vice president of Sri Ram Foundation and a trustee of their orphanage, clinic, and children's school in Hardwar, India. He is a photographer, videographer, builder, and editor, a student and teacher of yoga, of subtle body theory, and of the Bhagavad Gita. And that's when he's not working for Mount Madonna School. For the school, he has created and teaches what will one day be a nationally recognized curriculum on values in American thought, and has developed the high school travel program, including the rafting trip, the government in action tour to Washington, D.C., and most recently to intellectual mentors at Harvard University. And he serves on the Guidance Council and on the New Campus Development Committee. What endears Sadhanand most to his students is his passionate concern for their development and growth, his uncompromising insistence on high-quality work, and his tireless efforts on their behalf. What endears him most to me is his willingness to examine himself and to change. Sadhanand's life is one of thoughtful, creative, ethical action in service to others. Please welcome him to speak to us today.
Meditation period I've had all week. And I'd like to congratulate the student that turned their paper into Fred as he was standing in line to come through the door. That's a new level of brinksmanship. Josh, Aaron, Alicia, Dante, Dove, Josh, Katie, Allison, welcome. We're here. For all of you who have come to celebrate, also welcome. Every year when I see this group of kids on stage, I'm reminded of a story about one of their predecessors, and I wasn't going to say his name, but what the heck, P.K. Diffenbach. And one of my all-time favorite kids, but when he was a young guy, his grandparents took him to Washington, D.C. And Grandpa took him through the Smithsonian, which is what you do when you go to Washington, D.C., unless you go with us. And after he'd taken him through one museum, he turned to P.K., who was, I think it was 9 or 10, and he said, "P.K., anything else you want to see?" And P.K. said, "Yeah, the door." So when I look at these guys up here, I know they're looking for the door here. But before they get there, we have one very sweet moment to go through with them. And I have a few words to say. And since it's your fault that I'm up here, I want you to practice the thing that I told you the first day your junior year when you came into my class, which was to look like you're paying attention. Eye contact and periodic head nodding. That gets an A in my class. Because that way I feel like I'm doing a good job, and I'll give you my best performance and feel good when I'm done. The odd thing is that back in January, I had some really good ideas and actually wanted to be up here today talking to you. But when, I think it was Alicia who said, Yeah, I voted for you to speak as long as you'd be funny. I think that was somewhere in Boston. I realized I had forgotten a lot of those really brilliant ideas, but I did remember the theme. And I wanted to present it to you because this is an important group of people. This is our educational community. This is a big part of it anyway. And we're the people that are invested in this exercise. And I think in many ways, all of us here have a piece of the credit for what's going on today. The main theme really is this, that just as you, the graduating seniors, are at this very exquisite moment in time where you're reflecting on your accomplishments and excited about your future, and maybe even a little apprehensive, that this school that you're leaving behind is preparing for its own leap of faith into a new and exciting chapter of its existence. It's going to require a similar dedication and discipline and vision. So that those of us who've enjoyed your presence here so much at Mount Madonna School actually stand on a similar spot today as we think on all that we have been and all that we hope to be. And in the few minutes before the really important comments of our graduates, I want to say to you why I'm excited about the idea of taking this next big step in creating a new home to the educational vision for Mount Madonna School. And I want to start with a recent event that probably most of you participated in one way or another, and that's the Ramayana. And this year, I was particularly intrigued as I watched the transition between the tech dress rehearsal on Thursday night and the final bow on Sunday. What I saw on Thursday was a collection of individuals coming together, looking within themselves, very concerned about what they were bringing to the table, and concerned about their discipline and their art and their effort. So it was really a group of individuals engaged on an enterprise together but still looking for each other. And I think there were a lot of doubts. I think that's natural. Will I be good enough? Will I remember my lines? Why are we making all of this effort? It seems like a lot of effort. Here we are so close to the end of the year. And I can imagine some of you out there going, oh my God, I've got to drive over the hill for the next 4 days. Or the tech crew worrying about props and lights and sounds, and collectively all of us wondering, are we going to have a play? And in the next few days, it was amazing. Everybody showed up. Everybody paid attention. Under the compulsion of 500 to 1,000 people, I guess 500 per performance, paying customers showing up, everyone began to surrender their separate lives to create the larger common whole. The separate parts began to connect, and the mysterious alchemical process started to work. And what I witnessed was individual actors, musicians, script writers, tech people, lighting people, sound people, take the individuality of their discipline and their talents and efforts and offer them up to the whole. Once the play took stage, the characters, which were previously only script lines and stage directions, became a story. And the students became their characters, and they began to recreate themselves by noticing new possibilities in every moment. And that's what I believe the epithet that we see in our brochures about the notion of creative self-expression really means. Was it worth it? Well, the question was answered for me by seeing our entire community come together. Parents, students, teachers, administrators, alumni, friends, Mount Madonna staff, fellowship members, all focused on a common goal. Was the process easy or convenient? I think the word excruciating might come to mind. But how many moments do we get in life where everyone engages in a common cause, where the vehicle for our best intentions is so compelling that we're willing to sacrifice our separateness for a common goal? In this metaphor of the children's Ramayana, I believe many of the implicit missions and messages of the Mount Madonna School are made tangibly explicit. Creative self-expression, to be sure, but in the context of service, self-sacrifice, community, integration of discipline, and positive values, and all these values woven into each aspect of the drama. And the drama is centered around our hopes as parents and teachers for a better world through an educational process that nurtures the talent and character of our children. The other example where I find my enthusiasm is a bit more personal because it involves the last act of the very exciting and challenging association that I've had with this particular group of students. With apologies to Allison, who, when I told her that I was not going to talk about the seniors directly, said, "Oh, will your speech be an advertisement for the values class?" It's not intended to be that. If I get more customers, so be it. I want to tell you about our final production in a very rarefied venue of Harvard University just a few weeks ago. For the past 10 years, I've been grappling and experimenting with the notion of teaching values in an academic setting. And as some of you know, we expropriated some of Bill Moyer's interviews with extraordinary thinkers and created a textbook called Values in American Thought. The very fact that I was allowed to begin this exploration 10 years ago was a gift of faith from this school. And it was a grace of another magnitude that Bill Moyers heard about the project and gave me the blessing to work with this material. Now, one of the students who graduated from this program in the early years happened to go to Harvard and was inspired enough by the ideas of those who were interviewed by Mr. Moyers in our curriculum to go and take their classes at Harvard. And then he had the imagination and what I consider the Mount Madonna chutzpah to go to their offices, make friends and mentors out of them. And so 6 years after he graduated from Mount Madonna School, he had formed enough of a relationship with these world-class teachers to help me organize a trip where we could take the Mount Madonna students and interview some of them in Boston. But the deal was we had to get to Boston. So for me, this was the possibility of a dream come true, to begin a new student-created values curriculum with our Mount Madonna group interviewing some of the finest minds in the country who have, as part of their mission, the examination of ideas that help us create a life of meaning and purpose. And I actually want to share something with you that I just ran upstairs and grabbed before I came in here, because I want to give you just a little flavor of who these people are. And this is something that Dewey Ming, a Confucian scholar, wrote, which I think describes Mount Madonna School pretty well. He said, "Education ought to be the civil religion of society. The primary purpose of education is character building. Intent on the cultivation of the full person, education should emphasize ethical as well as cognitive intelligence. Schools should teach the art of accumulating social capital through communication. In addition to providing for the acquisition of knowledge and skills, school must be congenial to the development of cultural competence and appreciation of spiritual values." To which I would add Michael Sandel, the political philosopher's notion that we have obligations by virtue of being born into privilege, more than just the ones that we choose. There are inherent duties that each of these students and all of us have. And he's teaching this to the Harvard students, who some of whom will be leaders in our culture. The notion that Charles Ogletree brings forth of his commitment to community and to being concerned with the needs and the welfare of people who are still coming up in the American dream so that they won't be left behind. And I think one of the most inspiring things that I've ever heard about teaching is the notion that Sarah Lawrence Lightfoot gives us, that students are not simply vessels to be filled with our arcane bits of knowledge, but a school is a gathering of gifts. And our obligation as teachers is to learn how to keep those gifts at the table, how to enhance them, and how to invite them in and give themselves expression, both in the school and development for later life. So that's kind of the content, a little bit of the content of what we were getting there. And this production obviously was not the work of just one person. The school administration had to support this somewhat inconvenient venture, Sampad, the director of the Ramayana, had to give me his leads 3 weeks before the play. The parents had to say yes to a pretty pricey field trip. And the seniors, who were quite ready to be done with things academic, had to fire up their intellects for one more big challenge. And as with the Ramayana, there were doubts. Would it be worth it? Could we sit with the intellectual giants and ask worthy questions? Or if we could we understand the answers? Wasn't it really time to be taking it easy after all the seniors had all banked their college acceptances and they were ready for a relaxed victory lap? Well, we went. We struggled as individuals and as a group to develop the necessary understanding to create the questions that would evoke the wisdom that we sought. We worked to breathe authenticity and life into the lines of thinking we developed to guide the conversation. And in the face of knowing that we could not possibly measure up to all the potentials of the situation, our Mount Madonna students succeeded more than admirably. It was, for me, the finest educational experience I've ever witnessed. The intellectual content was the best. Will they remember the content? Probably not. Not all of it. But I hope they'll remember that we took a chance, that they grabbed an opportunity that was not convenient, that they asked for and got support from their parents, that they were willing to do extra, that they sacrificed some of their comfort, and that they trusted themselves and each other enough to take a leap of faith into a new experience together. And that in the end, they left a legacy that will form the basis of a new curriculum so that those students who follow them will know what's possible. And I hope they'll remember that we had a lot of fun along the way. So I'm proud of these students, not because they're each uniquely gifted and capable, which they are, but because they took a risk, they made sacrifices, and they had faith in themselves and in the opportunity presented to them. I'm proud of them because it was not easy or convenient, but they did it anyway. And because I know they did it in part because they wanted to leave a little something behind of value. Within each of these Mount Madonna school enterprises, like the Ramayana or a trip to Boston, or so many other of the offerings produced by those who are sitting here today, I think we can see the pieces of the larger whole. We can see glimpses of the values that brought this school into existence. Just like the seniors sitting before you now, we as a school community can see the elements of the vision of who we are and who we can become. Hopefully, you will also see why, although it is not convenient or without risk, we intend to make a much larger commitment to the future of this enterprise by creating a new campus to facilitate the dream that we can change and shape and ennoble the future one student at a time. Why we are here. I do not believe that those who invigorate this learning center are here just to propel these bright minds into name-brand universities for the sake of educational bragging rights, although the students here have shown they're capable of going most anywhere they want. I do not believe we're here to produce motivated consumers who will compete for primacy in the marketplace, although I'm sure they could compete quite well. I believe we're here to suggest that a life of meaning and purpose is created by a giving of yourself to a greater good. As the great civil rights leader, Congressman John Lewis, said to these students last year, you, this generation of young people that will emerge as leaders of the 21st century, must find something to do that is so noble, so right, and so necessary that you'll forget about your own circumstances, your own predicament, and get involved in the needs and circumstances of others. What this generation of young students must be concerned about is what my generation was concerned about. And remember, he earned his right to make this statement, leading a march when he was not much older than these kids across the Edmund Pettus Bridge in Selma, Alabama. And when he was clubbed to his knees in the face of bigotry and confusion of the civil rights movement. He said, "What this generation of students and young people must be concerned about is what my generation was concerned about. That is to do what we can to enhance the dignity of humankind. We are all tied together, and what affects one affects all." He went on to quote Horace Mann, the father of modern education, who said that we should be ashamed to leave this world, ashamed to die until we've made our contribution to humanity. So I believe we're all here today because we believe in the mission and want to support the ideal of creating independent thinkers who have the values and the will to make a positive difference with their lives. So to our graduates, my congratulations on your completion of this stage of the journey. I have truly enjoyed being a participant and a witness to your challenges and to your accomplishments. I have reveled in the moments that each of you reached both beyond and into yourselves and learned the joy of being a positive part of a greater whole. Because I believe firmly that that is what brings joy and meaning to a human life. So as you head for the door, remember as you depart as students with our goodwill and our affection, that the door will always remain open to you as friends and fellow travelers on the road to a life of purpose.